Troglodyte warning, Piers Morgan is the problem. He's a culture war warrior who seeks to divide up and create problems where there isn't any. He gets upset about vegan sausage rolls and is pro-Israel and pro-Trump. He is firmly part of the establishment. He doesn't really question the establishment. Often he is on the side of the people in power, the money, and he doesn't have any values. He flip-flops. He talks about freedom of speech when it's convenient, and in many ways, he is an embodiment of the problem of our discourse. So today I want to break down a video that kind of just represents how he has no values. He just wants to have clicks, he's provocative, and doesn't care about solving the problem. So let's get straight into the video.
What do you make of the state of the UK at the moment? It really feels like we've got a lot of turbulence going on. 2 million people voted for, signed a petition for Keir Starmer to leave. Then this insanely surprising U-turn from Keir Starmer about immigration, saying that the Tories ran an open border policy. All of the riots that we saw across the country.
Was that a U-turn? I mean, they've been saying that for a while, that literally Tories, since Brexit, immigration skyrocketed. I mean, that's no, I mean, we can see that that's not a U-turn. He's saying nothing there.
This summer. How do you come to think about it? It's a country that you've chosen to live in?
I think that America has got its confidence back, and Trump has been responsible for that, as has Elon Musk. I think little thing, the rockets going off, right? They just instill in people a sense of America's firing rockets again. They're taking us to the...
They don't want to solve the problems of the economy, the cost of living crisis. They don't want to talk about the wages of the average American. 60% of the population live paycheck to paycheck. No, we just want to go to the moon and we want to go to Mars.
The moon, maybe to Mars. There's something heroically ambitious about the way that people like Musk feel, and Trump being down there at the last launch was just great imagery. He's making people feel...
Yeah, imagery. There you go. That's it. That's all they care about is imagery. It's not substance, not policy, not action that will help the working people. He's not going to reduce egg prices to $2. He's not going to reduce grocery prices. He's not going to reduce kind of the gas costs of the average American. So who's he going to blame? Anybody but himself.
Feel confident again.
Mastery, competence, conquer.
Yes, yeah. In the UK, there's no sense of that. There's a sense at the moment of we're just existing and that nothing's really working, that public services are decaying fast, that we're getting far too many people coming in.
I like that leap from that. Well, yeah, the public sector has just been completely decimated through austerity. Our infrastructure is literally crumbling because of 14 years of Tory, I would say incompetence, but they knew exactly what they were doing. It was the part of the plan. And then immigration. And then, again, this is why he's a pro-establishment figure. He talks about immigration because he can't talk about who he represents, Rupert Murdoch, the billionaire class. So he is part of the problem. He is the problem. He wants to talk about all immigration, trans, vegan sausage rolls, not who has all the wealth, not who has all the power.
That obviously we need immigrants to work as a country, but you can't have a net migration of nearly 1 million people and expect already struggling public services to not struggle even more.
Yeah, obviously, no one disagrees with that, but we need to put funding into public services, build houses, and have an infrastructure that can take more people. We need more people. Our economy is dead. The more people you have building houses, more jobs, more services, our economy gets bigger. The more people you have in an economy, the bigger it gets, the more demand, the more money. They don't talk about that because they can't talk about it because they don't want to solve the problems. It's all culture war. It's all just clickbait and just like sow division. So Trump and Musk can do whatever they want.
You just can't. And they said they'd fix the boats. The boats, I think more people are coming in than ever. But his actual legal migration is a big problem.
Well, they have deported at least 16,000 people, deported more people than the Tories. So let's talk about the facts here. because, again, he doesn't care about the facts because it's inconvenient for him. But we need to talk about how we deal with the small boats, because actually it's not illegal to come over on the small boats. Yes, there's people smugglers, but that's been created by Tories. That's a Tory planned thing. They knew exactly what they were doing because they ran on that. Stop the small boats. They know exactly what they're doing.
Bigger than the boats issue. And we've gone through years again, going back to what we discussed earlier, where you couldn't talk about this if you even raised an eyelid on question time about the number of people coming in.
Racist.
You were racist.
We've been talking about immigration for at least the last 100 years in the UK. It's been a massive part of the discourse. It was Jews. It was throughout the 60s. It was people come over at Windrush. And then it was throughout the 90s. It was kind of Indians and anybody of colour. And then it was the Polish in the early 2000s. And now it's Muslims. And it's people coming from Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Eritrea. So the idea that we don't, I hate this talking point so much. We don't, that's all the right wing press talks about in the UK. The Daily Express, the Daily Star, the Daily Mail, and the Sun. It gets massive sales because they're dying. So how do you keep people reading? Well, the scary immigrants, of course. It's not the scary billionaires that are ruining your lives. It's the people coming over on small boats.
In the same way that if you talk about trans athletes in sport, you're transphobic.
But we
Or
just
any of these
think-
things.
Well, you are, because that's a wedge issue to attack trans people. It's not about sports. Sports is inherently unfair. They don't care about sports. They don't care about women's sports. It's just a way to attack trans people because you can't go against the freedom argument because people should be able to express however they want. You can't go against the scientific argument because scientifically and from a psychiatric point of view, trans people are valid. So what do you have? Well, you have bathrooms. Okay, there's no evidence that people are being attacked in bathrooms. So what else do you have? Sport. That's it. That's it. They have no arguments to hit trans people, so they just go for that, which is such a small amount of people. Trans people are literally 0.1% of the population. How many trans people do in sport? It's such a tiny minority. It's not a problem. But they make it a problem because he is not interested in solving economic problems at all. He can't talk about the real issues.
And that all that has to stop.
But we've just seen Keir Starmer give a 2-minute statement, which went ballistic on social media, that the Conservatives couldn't have got away with 3-4 years ago. Could not have said that. So two things. Has the Overton window shifted?
Yes.
And secondly, is this just a guy that's had 2 million people put a petition together for him going, I need to do something to slow
Well, I don't
this.
think it's that so much, but he will certainly have looked at what happened in America and why Trump won. And he'll think, if I don't fix the cost of living, illegal immigration, and stop the woke crap investing my party, I'm done for. Particularly if you've got someone.
Again, what does he mean, woke crap? Like, what is he talking about? Oh, trans rights. Oh, people having the freedom to live how they want. I mean, Donald Trump is literally rolling back the rights of trans people. He wants to deport 20 million. I mean, that can't happen because it's so expensive. But this rhetoric, like, this is the problem. But, oh, no, it's trans people just trying to live their lives. What is he on about?
One circling like Nigel Farage, who is the UK version of Trump, and is a good friend of Trump's, right? And Farage's views were considered extreme. They're now considered increasingly mainstream because he's been proven on immigration to be right? Not about everything. Some of the language he's used has been, in my view, wrongly inflammatory. But it's
How has
basic.
he been proved to be right? He hasn't, by the evidence. Most immigrants contribute. Most immigrants, 1/5 the workforce. Most people are law-abiding, integrating citizens. They contribute greatly. He hasn't been proved right at all. He is conflating every social problem, any economic problem in the UK with immigration. Simply not true. It's more complicated. It's capitalism. It's inequality. It's failed public investment. They don't want to talk about that. Farage wants to cut public spending. What? Again, Piers Morgan is the problem.
principle about if you don't have a border, as Ronald Reagan said, if you don't have a proper border, you don't have a country. That's coming back to be clearly the case. So we need to be able to have an honest debate about this without people being called racist if they raise.
But again, he's conflating illegal immigration with small boats. This isn't illegal. They have the right under the 1951 Refugee Convention. So again, he's muddying the water. He's being dishonest, and he knows exactly what he's doing.
Concerns about what is an obvious problem.
But every country wants to have some borders. Like, what are you?
Well, you're not a country if you don't.
Precisely correct. Elon Musk rumors a threat of $100 million to be tossed at Nigel Farage. You and him had a bit of a run-in earlier on this year. What do you make of that? Would you be happy to see Farage get 100 mil from Elon?
I don't think you can do that legally in our country. Someone was saying there's a legal impediment to him actually doing that as a
He's rich, he can get around it.
As a foreign citizen. Yeah, look, he obviously had a big effect on Trump winning. I think there's no question of that. Look, I think Elon's allowed to do what he likes. He's a free citizen.
But would it help the UK politics to have that position?
Well, he would balance it out because at the moment, Labour certainly have a lot more money coming in than the Tories in the last election. So, I look, they all take money from people, right? Some take money from
It would balance it out, the world's richest man having such an impact on American politics. Yeah, it would balance it out.
dodgy people indeed. All of us pretend we hate it, but it carries on both sides. If they all want to give up all outside donations, fine.
If the Conservatives,
they can't really afford to do that.
If the Conservatives are as dead in the water as people think in the UK, is reform where the attention
Reform's in a
should
very, very good position. I mean, Kemi Badenoch's got to do something pretty radical and pretty quickly with the Conservative Party, or my prediction would be that Farage may well end up being the next Prime Minister, as Elon Musk has said. I don't think that's a mad idea at all. But he might be by then running a Conservative Party which has had reform flip into it. That's where my smart money would be, is that they'll do a deal, they'll merge the parties, and that probably Farage ends up contesting the next election. And if Keir Starmer has not delivered by then on all his promises, or any of them, then he could be political toast.
I think I agree with that. I think that's true. The only opportunity Farage will have, you have split the vote between Lib Dems, Tories, Reform, and Labour win again, or you do have the Tory party doing a deal with Farage. And at the moment, that doesn't seem likely. But a lot can happen in 4 or 5 years. And if the Labour don't deliver, which I think it will be hard to, because again, 5 years of, to fix the mess of 14 years is going to be difficult. But there is a chance that Farage could be the next Prime Minister. And I think as time goes on, it may be more likely.
I've had Dominic Cummings on the show, and he did a podcast recently where he talked about some theatrics, I think you could say, in government, that there was sort of a fake meritocracy, fake responsibility, fake government. He also said that cabinet meetings are fully scripted. Based on what he says, based on what Rory Stewart says, I don't know. It really does not feel like we have the brightest buttons in the bunch.
Well, we don't. We have a very mediocre tier of politicians now. I mean, you go back to the Thatcher years and her cabinets.
I don't think it's that. I think it's the incentives. Like, politics is so short-termism. It's not really about solving problems. It's about just staying in power for like, okay, what can we do to get into power? Usually scapegoat immigrants and trans people. And then what can we really do? Because there's so many traditions in the UK. There's so much limits on you because you're really kind of, being controlled by the wealthy, the financiers, the fossil fuel companies. You don't really have as much power as you'd like to think. So that's the system. The system's broke. It's not like, the caliber of people. Yeah, you need people with visions, but our politics doesn't lend to people actually having a vision for the future at the moment.
Just packed full of very smart people. Tony Blair's cabinet, for the first 2 terms in particular, incredibly smart people. People like Gordon Brown as Chancellor, just unbelievably brilliant brains. So I think that's certainly true. I think a lot of smart people, particularly if they've made good money.
Yeah, but today, like Gordon Brown, the idea that an academic, someone who's highly educated, would actually be in politics and people celebrate that. No, people don't like experts. People don't like people who actually have knowledge of how things work. people reject that completely. So yeah, we don't have politicians that actually have like an expertise in something. They're just given something like, oh, now you're the minister for education. You've got no experience in this or health. It's insane.
You don't want to get into politics because it's just going to ruin their lives.
The worst paying, most negative,
Yeah.
boring,
In Singapore,
bureaucratic.
famously, they pay their politicians $1 million a year.
Do you know what the head of UK cybercrime wage was? It was offered a couple of years ago, £65,000 a year.
So why would you expect anyone of caliber to do that? So we don't pay people enough for important jobs in this country. Yeah. I would personally pay the politicians an awful lot more. What they couldn't do is have any outside interests. So I might even pay them £500,000 a year, but I say you cannot have any stock investments, you cannot have any outside business.
Rishi Sunak would be fucked.
What do you?
But I don't think that would solve the problem per se, because you're still going to have that influence. You're still going to have lobbying. You're still going to have the consolidation of the wealth at the top. So yeah, pay them more. But again, should the politics, should it be about kind of serving your country? Like the vision of what a politician is, like, should it be about, oh, their personal gain, or should it be somewhat of a kind of vocation where you go into politics to actually make people's lives better? I mean, I think we should have a bit of both.
Would, yeah. But that, in a way, I didn't like the fact that Richie was stinking rich. I was fine about that. I think you
Of course you were, Piers.
don't make decisions then based on what's going to benefit you, right?
Yeah,
So
in some ways it insulates you from...
I wonder if a lot of Tories have not got seller's remorse about Rishi, actually.
Insulate
I
you.
think the way he behaved after he lost, he was very impressive.
How does have massive wealth insulate you from not consolidating wealth? What? Oh, mind blown.
In the comments after that. I always liked him. I think he made a few strategic missteps, but actually pretty smart, committed, hard-working guy. And yeah, the fact he was rich didn't bother me at all. But no, I think it's going to be very interesting. I mean, I do think we're deliberately attracting mediocre people to politics now because we don't make it attractive enough.
Well, we're
to
second...
attract the smart
No,
people.
it's because politics has been soiled by you, Piers, where it's all culture war stuff, not actually economic policy of improving people's lives. It's all about immigration. It's all about trans rights. It's all about wokeness.
The UK is second in the world in millionaire exits in 2024.
Aw.
First in the world is China with about, I think, 13 to 15,000, and the UK is about 10,000. But we are 3% of the population. We have more than India, and India is 20 times bigger.
What's your point?
We have the same number of universities in the top 10 in the world as America do, but we have 1/5 the number of startup founder entrepreneurs. Why? Well, because there is not, even bottom up, we can talk top down, what's happening in Whitehall, the hallowed corridors of Westminster and stuff. But I think even bottom up, I'm from a Stockton, from working class town. And I saw some videos of Middlesbrough riots going through Acklam, like places that I know, in places that I've been. And like just working class rage, people disgruntled. And this,
Well, hang on. Okay, let's talk about these riots for a minute.
But why are they disgruntled? Because of the economic inequality. The fact that there is no meritocracy. There is no social mobility. But their hatred and real discontent is being redirected at immigrants. And I'm sorry, again, this guy, he's part of the problem too. He's making money from this division. He doesn't care about the working class people. Does he give real solutions? Does he care about the economic future of the UK? Of course he doesn't. He's making a lot of money.
Here we go.
Because that wasn't why they were rioting.
Of course, that's my point. My point is
they were rioting because they were whipped up by people who should know better and probably did know better into believing a certain set of circumstances had happened surrounding an appalling attack, right?
Yep.
They hadn't. It wasn't actually an illegal asylum seeker who committed these actions. And so people were in a way it was a smaller version of the Iraq War, which I opposed so vociferously. I'll tell you why. It was fought on an entirely false pretext. Had Saddam had weapons of mass destruction, that war would have been justified. Had the person who perpetrated this crime been an illegal asylum seeker, you're not entitled to commit violence, but you're certainly entitled to feel rage about that happening at a time when this whole issue of illegal asylum seekers, coming in and taking over the country, all that argument they put forward, it would at least have had some validity.
taking over the country. This simply isn't happening. This hyperbolic just misinformation about what immigrants do and how they contribute. This is the problem. Again, why can't they talk about the real problems here? The economic inequality that ravishes the UK, just the poverty of children in poverty. They just can't talk about it. And this is the future now. We've got this for the next 10 years.
Either that was why they were angry.
Even the premise wasn't accurate.
But everything about it was wrong. Right.
Yeah.
So the riots were whipped up by people, malevolent voices who should have known better. Tommy Robinson, Andrew Tate and others. I took on Tate about this a few days later. And that's a problem with social media. Now, let's go further to when a lot of people were put in prison because they tweeted things. That I don't agree with.
Well, what examples is he talking about? Is he talking about the people who call for violence? Or is he talking about people who didn't? Because these are very different things. Again, he doesn't talk about it, which is interesting.
Right. Yeah. And I don't agree with that because it seems a ridiculous overreach. And when you overreach to that level, where people are literally, grandmothers have been put in prison for 2 years for something they put on Facebook.
Again, he can't talk about solid examples here because when it did happen, that woman, the woman who was sent to prison for calling for violence towards Muslims, I think that's fair enough. Like, when you call for violence towards a people, that is an act of incitement. And sorry, but there needs to be repercussions for that.
That's not a sensible response to this either.
Not
if
when-
people are actually chucking Molotov cocktails at an asylum seeker hotel, yeah, chuck him in prison for a few years. But a granny gobbing off on Facebook, come on. Is that what we're really about in this country?
Again, he's not talking about a concrete example there. Why not? Why not, Piers?
There was the thing I realized when I watched those videos in Middlesbrough was a lot of the people that were walking down the street, there was a new build house with fresh windows, and you could tell because it still had that sort of tape papering over the outside. And, people were out in the streets going through a classic northern terraced working class neighborhood, and someone just picked up a brick and threw it through the window of this brand new house. And that was the point where I was like, this has got nothing to do with the immigration, rightly or wrongly, false pretext or correct pretext. It's just this sort of...
Well, that would be an angry resentment.
But to what?
Well, people having what you don't have, and you're feeling. And look, who knows what's...
The fact he doesn't know that, he's so out of touch. This guy is so out of touch. I assume he's a millionaire. He's got 3 million subscribers. He's doing very well. He's got the advertisement of his supplements here. They're so out of touch. So out of touch. The idea that he doesn't know the massive economic inequality in the UK. Outside of London, the economy is comparable to Mississippi, the poorest state in America. They don't know the real problems and how economic does cause crime. It causes distrust. It causes so many social ills, mental health issues, stress. People are stressed, they're working, cost of living crisis. They haven't mentioned any of these things. Why is that? Because they can't. They can't talk about the real issues. They are the problem.
going on in these people's lives,
I understand,
right?
but
I understand the rage of people who maybe through the pandemic have come.
How do they understand these? Piers Morgan certainly is an establishment figure, billionaire, not billionaire, millionaire. Certainly, he's worth a good few million. This other guy is too. They are out of touch. Why do they get to say how people are feeling? They have no idea.
Out and they've got no job. Maybe they've gone through a horrible divorce. Maybe they've got no money. They can't afford to feed their kids. Their lives are shit. And I understand they're going to feel angry. Of course I do. And by the way, there are lots of people in this country who are in that position. Lots. And you've got to understand what is driving
I do.
sense
Look,
of anger and resentment.
I lived half of my life was spent in that.
What is it, though? They're not saying. What is it? What is the cause of it? Again, they won't say it, will they?
World. 50%. I'm 36. I've been there. I was there until I was 18, and then I left to go to university in Newcastle. So I know these people. I know that culture very well. Yeah. It's electric. It's like the air before a thunderstorm begins. And it's this sort of ambient malevolence below the surface, this disgruntledness. But it feels to me like the UK has a very, very sort of potent version of this. Great video that I saw. This American that lived in London for 6 months, and he describes the way that British football fans behave. He's like, they're not just passionate, they're angry. Like they would happily, if there weren't police officers between them and the other team.
Hang on again.
Again, I know, I knew this was going to happen.
They're like a fight, mate. Let's not overthink football hooligans, right? I've seen them in action. Most of them just like a good old punch up. They're like a drink, probably some drugs, and a fight, and they actually love it. And to understand the mind of a football hooligan, you need to start from that. It's not some great.
I mean, even the normal fans, you don't need to be one of the hooligans. Even the guys in the back row, they seem to.
Yeah, the mob mentality can brew up very quickly. Of course, I've been at football matches.
So you think they're downstream from the more aggressive parts of the stadium, so to speak?
I think a lot of football hooligans. I mean, look, when I was young, football hooligans dominated every single match. It was pretty scary and thrilling at the same time. Can't pretend otherwise. When I was 18, 19, watching battles on the terraces was exciting in a way that watching a UFC fight can be exciting. But I'd rather have the more controlled environment than having it happening on a football
where it can spill over into your seat.
And now it doesn't. But I wouldn't over-intellectualize the average British football hooligan, who they might like to see themselves as political polemists with their fists, but they're not. Yeah. Most of them just like a good fight.
Trust really is everything.
True. I agree with Piers Morgan there. I mean, a lot of belligerence, football. There is, I mean, I don't want to centralize it to the UK because, we're humans, we're passionate. We have these repressed feelings and anger comes out. And we are in a time of transience. We are in a very uncertain time. But it comes from economic inequality. It did 100 years ago in 1930s Germany. And we're seeing the same things now. We're seeing the same trends where people have got real concerns, but they're being redirected to the wrong people. So if you enjoyed this video, you want to see more, hit the like button, and I'll see you next time.